In the 2009 movie Coraline, the protagonist wished her family would give her just a little bit more attention. In a surreal turn of events, she finds a small door inside of her house that leads to an alternate reality where her family absolutely adores her. She loves visiting this new reality until she realizes that her alternate mother cynically wants to keep her there forever. Many members of the fighting game community have a reoccurring wish too. The wish of a perfectly balanced fighting game. But what would a perfectly balanced fighting game look like? Well, that shouldn't be too hard. All you need to do is make a fighting game with only one character available. This way, each side would have the exact same tools, so no tool would be better than another one. This isn't what you wished for? Oh, okay. By the end of Coraline, the protagonist quickly realized that what she wished for wasn't exactly what she wanted. While the grass might have seemed greener on the other side, it just created a whole different set of problems. Perfect balance in fighting games might seem like something almost out of reach, but if a developer did make a game like this, the general audience would immediately realize it's not at all captivating or exciting. Even if fighting game developers made a game where each character's tools were extremely similar to one another but with only slight differences, they would still be in balance. Let's take chess for example. A game where both sides have the exact same tools, but there is just one small difference, and that's that white goes first. While the metagame of chess has evolved exponentially, at the highest level across all major tournaments throughout history, it shows that statistically, white has a 5% higher win rate than black. This example just goes to show that even if a difference between two things is tiny, at the highest level, one tool or character will have the advantage. So, are we just doomed to play imbalanced fighting games?
No! Well, yes.
I bring you to a quote that I reference a ton in my mind when thinking about balance and character selection. A quote from a Q&A analyst from NetherRealm Studios that is so cerebral but simple at the same time. Dizzy simply said in a status on Test Your Might, "It's okay for a character to be mid-tier." Balance is a delicate subject, so of course this comment wasn't entirely well received at the time. Apparently, anytime anyone brings up balance, you're either a crybaby or you're downplaying your favorite character. Even saying the term low tier will cause some people to completely dismiss anything you say. But let me break down what Dizzy means by "it's okay for a character to be mid-tier." Like we've already established, a game where every character plays the exact same way would be really stale. People want a balanced fighting game, but also one that has characters that could do cool and different things that set them apart from one another. This inevitably creates matchups that are unique and exciting. And while the subjective best characters will tend to be popular amongst the community, their bad matchups will act as blockers that'll prevent them from feeling like the only possible options to win, and will dampen the odds of them showing up way too frequently. Let me break to reference Alex Jaffe, a data scientist and programmer, to further explain.
And for a game like Street Fighter, say, a player may spend years training with one character. They're not just going to pick the character that's going to, do the best in this particular matchup. They're going to be kind of stuck on their character. So it seems like these single-round games, these zero-sum games, these selection games can't really say much about what a real community will look like, right? Because it has to do with this very human property. It's kind of like spanning outside the magic circle of what people train over time. But I have an argument that there actually is a much deeper connection between these two models than you might think. So consider the following model for how a community forms, okay? Imagine you have, say, a third Ryus, a third Zangiefs, and a third Camis in some community of Street Fighter players. And they're basically stuck on their characters. Everybody plays their character almost all the time because it's so important to train with that one. But then a new player comes along, and he's going to play for a while and pick the character that lets him totally dominate the current characters. So he picks Fei Long, right? Because Fei Long, has an advantage against each of these. And the new player comes along, and she picks Fei Long too, right? Because Fei Long has this advantage. It's great, right? You can basically exploit the weakness in the current community. And this keeps happening for a while until finally there are a lot of Fei Longs. And then someone has this amazing idea. They realize, like, I'm going to play Balrog, because Balrog has an advantage against Fei Long, and now I can get more wins, right? So imagine this is a process. This is a process that describes how your community forms. It seems not so crazy far from reality. But the amazing fact is that this process is identical to an algorithm called fictitious play. And this algorithm is a way to compute the optimal strategy to a selection game, which means that over time, the percentage of players who we see sort of playing Ryu in a community is going to converge to the percentage chance that you should play Ryu in a single round of this game.
Okay, I feel like I've lost you a little, so let me reel you back in. Simplified, what Alex is trying to say is that while character A might not be the most optimal against characters B and character C, it is a slightly better matchup against characters 1 and characters 2. And since characters 1 and characters 2 end up being good against characters B and C, then the odds of you being successful with character A in the long run is actually good enough that you would want to stick with them as your main character that you dedicate time to. Again, this is assuming that character A stands a chance against their bad matchup and it's not just a complete slaughter. It's balancing around the community at hand. Developers do it by focusing their attention on win rates and character frequency, and it's known to work very well. Many times, the characters with the best win rates aren't the higher tiers with more winning matchups, but the counters to those certain high tiers. So these counters become more popular. This is literally the best that fighting game developers could hope for. There is no avoiding that some characters will end up being mid-tier, and that's just fine if they could compete in the grand scheme of things. Still though, matchups and tier placings are so subjective in fighting games that questioning some people's opinions on their character almost feels like you're questioning their religion. So, as a developer, trying to get a clear picture of who exactly might fall from this abstract field of mid-tier into the obscurity of low-tier is especially hard, even when you talk to pros who specialize in the character in question. Lately, it's been a successful trend to have more characters and more customizable options in fighting games, which might seem dreadful to balance, but giving variable assists, specials, and super moves to specific characters might make problematic matchups feel a little bit less like an uphill climb. When developers come even close to a point where there subjectively might only be high tiers and mid tiers though, it becomes something pretty special. So the point is, by the end of Coraline, the protagonist appreciated her flawed, imperfect life for what it was. And maybe if more people in the fighting game community looked at the big picture, they might just appreciate our imperfect world too.
From the Manatee County Fair, Linda Carson, ABC7, Would You Not Eat My Pants? Ah!